It is a joy to be here. I really honor and love the energy of this center, your amazing minister, Reverend Edward, of course, and your whole team. Just you're very, very blessed to have this here. I know you know that, but it's so nice to be told that from someone outside. So appreciate, yes. So I think I was asked, you guys are so organized here, I was probably asked back in February or something, my talk title. And I was like, this is a good idea. And then as I got closer, I'm like, what did I mean by that? So we'll see where Spirit takes us today. I really do honor you as people that are on the edge of an awakening that is vitally important to all of humanity, to be waking up to the revelation that fear has been running much of the world, has been running much of our lives and our choices. But you're here at this spiritual center able to wake up to the revelation of the higher power, the powers whose name is love or God or whatever name you choose to call it. You get to a point where it really is the nameless experience of oneness. And to be in a place where you can contemplate that idea, to be a consciousness within yourself that is available for that conversation is a quantum leap out of the dark ages, if you will. And there's still a lot of confusion and fear running things out there in the world. But once you really do realize that love is what is real and that fear game has an end date, it really does. And the truth of the matter is, let's go real deep today. The truth of the matter is, all that is created out of fear, ultimately, when fear is gone, all of the effects and the consequences of it will also immediately dissolve. And love will remain. So as people that are dedicated to that, I really, really honor you. And we need each other in this time to come together and to become vulnerable and to become willing to be seen at deeper levels of being than ever before. Because the more we can shine the light on where the shadows live, the more we're willing to look underneath all of the wonderful celebration stuff. And believe me, that's all valid and true, but we don't want that to be bypass. We want that to be an authentic experience from self. And the more light, in my experience, the more light I allow to shine within me, very often, at some point, the light says, now let's look at that little dark corner you've been ignoring. Now let's look at how you've been limiting yourself and keeping yourself still living underneath a ceiling. Because the more we expand, the more becomes available. And then we go, oh, and there's more to expand. And there's more to expand. I was raised Catholic. That was fun. But prior to that, when I was really, really little, I was just a ball of joy. I was just present and happy and playing and then just really had a wonderful experience of self because I hadn't yet been, as Don Miguel Ruiz says, domesticated. I hadn't been yet trained on how to not be myself. I was trained to not be myself. Now, no one said that specifically, but I was a very bright little child. So I was able to read the signs, and somehow I realized, not consciously, but subconsciously, those big people aren't being themselves. That seems to be the game to play, and I want to belong. I want to be loved by them. This is a deep soul need. And I want to be fed, and I want to get my bike for my birthday. There's a lot that goes into this, to us following the rules of the game. So slowly we fall asleep. We fall asleep to, not totally. We don't totally fall asleep. You know, we have experiences of self. We have experiences of joy. And we have goodness. But not as a constant state of being and not as something that is yet to be fully evolved as who we are. So that's the game we're on. So the spiritual path becomes about allowing this inherent love that we are to trust that to know that that's who we are. And because we know that so deeply, we begin to let the walls, and as the song so beautifully said, the 3 feet, or the three feet walls around our hearts and around keeping us safe, we allow those to dissolve. We say, I'll let the walls down. I'll stop the fighting. I'll stop making other people wrong. Those are the easy steps, believe it or not, because the next one is, I will let my light shine so boldly and brightly that I'm willing to wear a shirt that looks like it's throw up. Yes. To move through life deeply interested in how big can you really be? Just because you can be it. Just because you can. Because you can, that should be enough of a reason to shine your light and to live your truth and to speak from your heart and to put boundaries up where boundaries belong and to take them down where they're ready to come down. It's your game. It's your life. But so often, we get so seduced by so much less. I want to tell you a story about a man named Adir. Adir lived in a very, very poor village. But Adir had something that his neighbors didn't have. He had a cow. And this cow was able to provide a little bit of milk that he could take to the market, and he could trade that so his family could have a little more than everybody else around him. Adir dreamed of having more in life, but he had that skinny cow. By the way, it's a skinny cow, not a big fat cow like you see in the beautiful fields out here. A very, very, very skinny cow. But nonetheless, it gave him a little bit of milk. It was a little more than the others. Well, one day, the Baal Shem Tov came to town. Now, the Baal Shem Tov means spiritual teacher, revered spiritual leader. And so he came in. Excuse me one moment. The Baal Shem Tov came into town with his students. And everyone was so excited. What a blessing to have this man come into town. And they all went down to the main street and they welcomed him and he came in and everyone was so excited. And Adir and his wife were right there with the village. And to his surprise, the Baal Shem Tov walked right up to Adir. And he said, me and my students need to be fed. We're hungry and we need a place to stay tonight. Could you help us? Well, Adir was just so honored. He said, absolutely, absolutely. And he and his wife ran home so honored until they opened the cupboards to see there was nothing in it. What were they going to do? Well, Adir says we have to sacrifice the skinny cow. We have to let our cow go. We have to feed them. And the wife was like, no, that's all we have. That's all we have. Well, Adir made the decision. And he sacrificed the cow, and they came, and fast forward and pretend they had microwaves back then, and it was all cooked. And he fed them, and he thought to himself, well, at least there's enough meat here that they'll eat some, and I can get through the week and figure out what to do. Well, the Baal Shem Tov and his students sat down, and the Baal Shem Tov ate and ate and ate until there was not one piece left. And imagine Adir just watching him in horror. Well, just when you think it couldn't get worse, the Baal Shem Tov stands up and he says, you know what? Thank you for the dinner. We're actually not tired. We're going to keep going. And they just left. Well, Adir looked at his wife looked at Adir, and he said, I'm going to take a walk. And he went out into the woods and he was just devastated. Do you know that fear when you feel like you've lost everything? And as he was walking through the woods, he heard a moaning sound. And so he followed the sound until he found a man who had fallen and broken his leg. So Adir got some sticks and twigs and bandaged up the leg and helped him. And he was talking as he was helping him and got him some water from the stream. And he found out that the man's name is Mordecai. Well, Mordecai is the richest man in all of the villages. And Adir was so like, wow, this is amazing to meet you here. And so they talked a little longer, and then a deer helped him up and helped Mordecai get to a neighboring village where a friend lived. And he left him there and went back home on his way. Let's fast forward a couple years, and the Baal Shem Tov is coming back through the village with his students. And suddenly this beautiful carriage being pulled by amazing, gorgeous horses pulls up, and out jumps a deer. And he goes, Baal Shem Tov, it's so great to see you. And the Baal Shem Tov says, look at you, a deer. This is amazing. And a deer says, yes, Mordecai passed away and left me all of his riches. And the Baal Shem Tov said, good for you. And the deer and his wife drove off in the carriage, and the students said, wait a minute. Something's really weird here. Ever since we were here last time, number one, you don't eat meat. And number two, you would never offend somebody and be so rude as to say you're going to stay the night and then get up and leave. That was a poor man. He used his last piece of food to serve us, and you just up and left. That guy was poor. What was happening? To which the Baal Shem Tov said, a deer was never poor. I just needed to get the skinny cow out of the way. So it leads us to the question, what is your skinny cow? What are you clinging to, thinking this is all I have? I've got to cling to this. And when we cling to anything, when the words come into our mind and out of our mouth, this is all I have, that becomes a curse. That becomes, and so it is. At least in terms of our ability to see. At least in terms of our ability to experience life, it just becomes more and more narrow. And the more narrow our view becomes, the more dark and scary it becomes, to where this is all I have, this is all I have. And we cling tighter and tighter and tighter until finally we lose even that. But you know, if you've ever done that, when you finally lose it is when the breakthrough comes, right? So, again, our spiritual life is always guiding us to say, where are you clinging? Where are you limiting yourself? And where is it time to grow? It's not easy. I founded, as was mentioned, I founded the Bodhi Spiritual Center in Chicago, and I loved it. It was fantastic. From the day it started, it just sort of had this magic within it. It just kept growing and growing, and amazing people would come, just like you guys. And it just was very, very prosperous. And I was very sort of surprised at how successful it was, because you know how the part of us is like, but I'm leading this thing. How's that possible? But it was just a wonderful experience. At year 10, as I was in my own prayer and meditation, I heard the whisper of my spirit, my divine, say to me, it's time for you to go. To which I said, no. Right? That's what you say. And so I sort of, I did what we do when scary inspiration comes. We shove it under the carpet and we ignore that. And by the way, I had a whole list of people I wanted to go, and I was glad to offer that up to God and say, you can get rid of all of these people, please. They're bothering me. But not me. Not me. It was shocking and deeply scary. It really was, because I had the fantasy that I would just stay there for the rest of my life. I founded this place, the ego said. The ego said. So eventually, first you get the whisper, then the voice gets louder, then the baseball bat comes. But what I came to realize, because I was doing a lot of prayer and I was working with my practitioner and really doing some, soul searching, obviously, because it was a time of change in my life. And I'd realized that Bodhi and me had become like intertwined inside of me. I had become enmeshed with it. And that was a lot of the pain that I was also experiencing too. So kept praying. Prayer works, talking, getting deep, facing the fears, sharing them with a practitioner, getting the support I needed. And one day, I'll never forget the day. It will become one of the days I reference for a very long time, I hope. It went like this. It just popped open. And I felt it. I do it here because I felt it inside of me. It just, me and Bodhi just separated. And I took a deep breath. And I was like, I'm free. I'm free. Not that I didn't love what I was doing, but whenever we're enmeshed, we lose ourselves. And so I felt that coming back to myself. And then from there, finally, things started unraveling. But before you make the decision, it's like, what will I do? Where will I go? How will this work? The questioning of the ego, the fear can really come in. And that's what happened to me. But what I realized was before I actually gave the yes, I wasn't able to see and allow the rebirthing process. Because if you're in resistance, how can you go downstream and resist at the same time? Not possible, is it? So to finally release the resistance, let life take me, what rose up in the middle of my heart was a dream I had held since I was probably 14 years old, which was simply to serve the LGBT world. I had a vision when I was a young child to say, I bet there's a lot of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender people in the world that don't feel good about who they are because of that. And wouldn't it be amazing if there was a way to change that consciousness to help people? Now, I really was talking about myself at the time at 14 years old, but I also somehow connected to my tribe in a way that I didn't fully understand. So here I am, much older than 14, and this rises right back up and says, I'm still here. And so somehow I generated the courage through my prayer, my practice, working with my practitioner, to follow that. And I said yes to that. And it's been an amazing journey. The summit was referenced earlier. But what I want to do in this moment, take a little pause, it's just what I've come to know. I've learned so much over the last year and a half of really working in this. And what I've learned so much is that you allies, you straight people, are one of the best gifts in the world. You people who love and accept LGBT people. I don't get the straight part. I think that's really odd. I'm going to be honest with you. I know you were born that way. That's what they told me. It's really weird. I'm going to be really honest, I can't let my mind picture it. I know, it makes me go, ew. You know what I mean? I don't mean to offend, I just want to be honest. But your hearts, if you are a straight person who accepts LGBT people and it's no big deal to you, you need to hear that it's a big deal. It's so easy for you, and I think that's really beautiful, but every time you just don't care that someone's gay, their heart gets healed a little bit. They feel accepted. Because at some point in their life, however short, it's much healthier today for the upcoming generations, but still there's a time where you feel so afraid of being excommunicated and left out, and that something's wrong with you. And that's a wound on the soul. So when someone who appears to be other says, hey, you're fine, that's cool, it's healing. So I genuinely, like the little commercial break, thank you. Thank you for being you, and thank you for just being so easy about it. Keep doing it. Keep doing it for sure. So let's go back to the story for one moment. The skinny cow. The skinny cow shows up in our lives when it's time for a job to be a career to let go, like I described to you, or a relationship comes to an end, or a physical thing happens to the body temple. There are lots of ways that it plays out in the physical world. But the most important place to play the game is to back it up to the consciousness behind, the thoughts and the beliefs. What skinny cow thinking is going on? How are you still believing it's okay to play small, or it's not okay to be wealthy, or you pine for it but you don't know how you can have it? What are the skinny cow thoughts that need to be sacrificed? Sacrificed meaning made sacred. To be made sacred. That which needs to be surrendered, crossed out, is what the crucifixion represents. Crossing out, making sacred, so that you can expand more and more into who you're here to be. And we talk about that a lot, the thoughts, the negative beliefs. But really, that's a skinny cow thought. And how am I clinging to that? How am I clinging to my skinny cow beliefs about myself? My skinny cow abusive ideas about my body, my talents, my gifts, my age. How do I walk through my life beating myself up? And who could you be if that game were over? Who could you be if you really sacrificed that, made sacred, offered it up, placed it on the altar of the Holy Spirit and say, done. I'm willing to go into the wilderness so that the universe itself will bring to me its reward and its riches. It is often in the dark night of the soul, the letting go, where the opening for the next experience occurs. Which is why we really have to keep reminding ourselves, what you do so beautifully here. God is my source. God at the center of my being, the love that I am. This is an eternal power and presence. We say these things not to make them true. We say these things because they are true. And anything that is unlike it, that is the lie. And I'm done being seduced by those lies. Are you? Yes. Oh, I do not believe you. You're like, yes. Okay, I'm so committed, I'm going to do it for all of us today. Today, please be thoughtful. Where's your skinny cow? Are you ready to let it go? Really? Are you ready to, thank you. Are you ready to shine your light? Are you ready to give up the domestication, the training that you received that really just led us to be half of who we are? Are you ready to be whole in your experience of life? Because that's the greatest joy. I'll bring this to a close here. The greatest joy is to live your full self in this lifetime, whatever this lifetime is. Because I imagine what I don't want to do, and for some reason this is an image that stays with me, I don't want to do my past life review whenever that time comes and look at my life and go, oh, dang. I only did half of it. I really let fear run the show. I don't want to do that. I want to grow as best I can and love myself inside of the breakdowns, of course. But the more you shine your light, the more you become your whole self, all of humanity is lifted up. It's not selfish. It is you giving yourself to the fullness of who you are so that others may do the same. Yes? Yes. Yes. Take a deep breath. Let's move into prayer. I'm going to invite our practitioners and our ministers to come up, and please join me. Come stand up here if you will. I just love practitioners. I think they're the best things. They work so hard, especially your new ones. They have given so much time and commitment to know the wholeness of themselves. They have looked at the dark side within themselves that it may be given to the light so that they can serve you. Don't ever leave here with something heavy on your heart when this amazing body of people are here for you. And I stand on their shoulders as I move into prayer. So I invite you to close your eyes, open your hands. And I say the word God. And my mind fills with light and my body fills with light. And I name that as who and what I am, was, and always will be. I am the wisdom, the freedom, the power, and the presence. I am the extension of God's love that is filled with all full with all that God is. There is nothing left out in the I am presence that I am. And as I know this to be true for me, I know this to be true for each and every one of us. I do not stand here alone declaring my glory and my oneness. I stand here knowing this for each and every one of us so that a unified field of truth is established here and now. And inside of this unified field of truth, I declare for each and every one of us a deep willingness to place upon the altar of the Holy Spirit the skinny cows in our minds, in our lives, and anywhere that have been blocking us from our joy, from our power, from our passion, from the freedom, and from being the love that we are so boldly and magnificently. I declare that these skinny cows are here and now sacrificed, made sacred, dissolved, removed, and returned to the nothingness from which they came, so that the love that we are simply says to you, here I am. I am. I am that. Take a deep breath. Take a moment in your heart and place upon the altar of the Holy Spirit your skinny cows. Surrender them this day. My financial fears, the aches and pains of my body, fear of love and relationships. I'm done believing myself unworthy. I'm done thinking myself too old, too this, too that. Place that on the altar. Inside your heart, place upon the altar the domestication that has kept you from living your fabulous self. Place upon the altar your relationships, that Spirit may make them holy, return the wholeness and the love that is there. Take another deep breath. Say yes. Say yes. Yes. Say yes. Yes. And this yes resounds throughout all of the universe and immediately attracts unto itself its fulfillment. Smile. So grateful for the fulfillment of this prayer. So grateful for this beloved spiritual center that allows us to come together in this kind of deep knowing and allowing. What a blessing. Great creation. Great creation. In gratitude, I release this prayer now into the action of the law, knowing that it is done. And together we say, and so it is, and so it shall be. Amen.